partner, and I'm going to wait till you pair it up.
Want to be my partner? Okay.
All right, find a partner. You got a partner? Everybody got a partner? All right, what I want you to do is hug each other. They're produced by the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the adrenal gland axis. Your axis, it is called the goddess molecule. It is a way for enabling you to reach out and touch yourself in a manner that helps your brain transmit knowledge in more active ways. One more time. One more time.
Thanks for the 7 hearts.
You see, what I'm trying to model for you is that intelligence is not a lump of something. Intelligence, and this is an important thing, write this down if you need something to write about, because you can build on it. Intelligence is transactional. It's the we. My brothers who are African Americans, you don't have to do this alone, and you should not, because Asians who are very successful know and have been taught by their culture to work in groups. Sure, working individually is important, but you have to find ways of accessing knowledge. And when you lack because of your social, cultural, psychological circumstances coming from your home environment, need ways of increasing that background knowledge, which enables you to think and to understand and to comprehend. The most important thing for reading comprehension is background knowledge. And if you lack the sufficient background knowledge, and I'm not just talking about vocabulary, you'll be sufficiently challenged. I am talking about the fact that every single one of you could be taught the calculus. If we go about learning in teams rather than individually. And homework, it's a waste of time. It is just a waste of time. It is such a waste of time. Unless your assignment is driven through YouTube or Facebook that poses certain questions that the group needs to answer together. Only in that circumstance. Homework which forces collaboration can work. Now I want to talk about, mostly we assess intelligence, and the IQs are a waste of time. If you have an IQ that you think you are genius at 140 plus, whatever the case, forget it. I know many of my fellow classmates from Lakeland and Peekskill High School who have not achieved at levels that I've achieved, who are a lot higher scorers on IQ. The thing here is what I've learned from a cognitive psychologist who's 90 years old from Israel. And let me tell you something. Lord, I believe, Lord. I believe because I felt it. I'm Israel's Martin Luther King awardee 2008. They brought me over to the Knesset, and I got a chance to touch the Western Wall. I was not expecting anything. But I touched that wall, and I started to cry. I was lifted up. I felt the energy that's there. I realized that there's a bigger force that's within all of us and outside of us. And I don't care if you're an agnostic, atheist, a believer or not. The book of Job is right when Job said to the Lord, Lord, I believe, help me in my unbelief. Lord, I believe, help me in my unbelief. I am spiritual, I am not religious. I do not go to church, not bragging about it. That's just who I am. I'm looking at you, young man, and I'm saying to you, that's right, you, yeah. I'm giving you, brother. Hug to you, man. Hug to you, brother. My African American brother. Hug to you. I felt something bigger than me. And I realized that the collective in we is what builds our nation. We are a wonderful country. What we need to do is break down those walls and those stereotypes that get in the way. Those kids were exhibiting stereotypes, which can become threats for anybody. A colleague of mine, Claude Steele, wrote this great book. It's called Whistling Vivaldi. You guys should read it. Whistling Vivaldi. He's a social scientist, and he worked with students, African American students, in Stanford. And they're all A's and B's, these African American students, in advanced math classes. He established an experiment where he just asked after they got an A on a test, similar questions, nothing different except the questions are different. He asked them to identify their race as black. Identify your race. Their scores dropped 50%. Why? Because he was assessing, in their own eyes, their intelligence, and they felt, because they have internalized it, that blacks are not intelligent as whites. Now, the same thing is true for women. I mean, there's a former president, his name is Larry Summers from Harvard, who basically said to all you women, you're just not wired cognitively to do well in math and science. That's bullshit. Excuse my language. I said I wasn't doing this, but I did it. It's college. And I know, are high school students here?
Yeah.
Let me see your hands. Don't write that down. Larry Summers basically created a stereotype threat for Harvard females, and they worked down to that belief. White males in Stanford were asked to take a test of golfing, their golfing ability, and the researchers said this is a test of intelligence. This is a test of intelligence and a test of physical prowess. Physical prowess. Guess what happened to those white students? They dropped because they did not think that they were physically endowed as African Americans are physically endowed. The threats are all over us. Let me tell you the biggest threat. Stereotype. Down syndrome. Down syndrome. Expectations about what Down syndromes could do. I mentioned Reuben Feuerstein in Israel, where I went and worked with him for years. I met one of his students who was a Down syndrome child with a reported IQ of 72. After working with Reuben, I don't have the time to go through the pedagogy and everything that's done, but just get this. After working with Reuben, this Down syndrome female, reported IQ of 72, is now a clinical psychologist with a PhD. Reuben says, only God can put his finger on awareness of where people are and where people are not. Jay-Z said it so well. He said it so well. Do you think Jay-Z just said this? Hello, Jay-Z. Jay-Z said, do you think God, I'm paraphrasing, God created two separate groups of people, one that's going to succeed and one that's do not? We have come to believe that we're not as capable as someone else. Well, you are. The point of telling you my story is to recognize it, hopefully it resonates, that you can do this. But it means, more than anything, rather than talent that you have, each of us has, it's character. It's character. They call it now grit. I've been talking about this for 20 years, right? Right at 20 years. They call it grit now, meaning perseverance, resilience, your ability to walk through a problem or a failure. Character needs to be a focus in American schools, K through 16, more than grades. In fact, I can say without a doubt that many of you are so fixed in your approach that you have a fixed mindset. It is about getting that grade. Well, it's not about getting that grade. It's about learning how to learn. It is about character, resilience, values, where you value the life of somebody else as I value my brother. What's your name? Yeah.
Mitch.
What is it?
Mitchell.
Max. I couldn't give you an oxytocin hug, Max, but I'm giving it to you now. Max, I'm with you, brother. I don't know, Max, maybe Max, you think you're a good student? I saw you shake your head. First response was no. You see, there's a precept. How many of you are gifted? Show of hands. Come on, all of your hands should be up. How many of you are gifted? Hands. Brother in front. How many of you, I want to see every single hand in the air. How many of you are gifted? Raise your hand. You know what Andres Erickson found? What separates those who are gifted from those who are not is 10,000 hours of application. How am I doing on time? I'm almost at the end. 10,000 hours. It is effort that needs to be focused in on Americans' classes, K through 12, and in higher education, and it's not done. And when we, as an organization, have been able to do that, we've gotten 2 standard deviations for every year. You know what that means? And I'm talking about the low-achieving kids. Low-achieving kids are making 2 standard deviations. That's 6 times the norm. You would expect, I know statistics, I worked at the College Board of Research and Development for 7 years. That's another story. SAT, you know, stand and deliver, Jaime Escalante. I was there when we didn't understand why those kids, those poor kids in the barrios of LA were scoring so high on the advanced placement test and the SAT, and we figured they got to be cheating. Not me, because I was the only black American there in the Office of Research and Development. I said, I know what's going on. That individual knows pedagogy. What do you think was Mozart's gift? God gave it to him in terms of his father. His father understood how to teach music. His father was there every step of the way. The key thing is to adapt to your strengths. And what we need to do, I started as speaking out, what we need to do in American education is not focus on remediation and weaknesses, but find every God-given gift and strength that you have. In fact, the first 6 months of education in K-12 should be on identifying the strengths, those cultural gifts that kids have, how we can build on that so kids begin to feel empowered. We disempower kids. Eric was disempowered by teachers and guidance counselors who did not believe in me. So it's belief. It is a belief. It's a renewed belief that's so critical so that we can access our oxytocins or our dopamine reward systems. We can access the serotonin so that it affects our executive functioning. And males, my brothers, my wife said, you know, not until you're 28 does your amygdala come into wealth, strength, because your amygdala is what controls your emotions and working with the hippocampus, 2 sides right behind your ears, which basically are the language cop and traffic cop for enabling you to withhold that impulse and withhold that reward for the bigger reward. My wife says to me, I haven't developed a full amygdala yet, especially when I'm in a car. Road rage. Look, what I'm trying to say, I'm winding down. This is God-given, guys. Each of us, every single person here, has 100 billion neurons. 100 billion neurons. Those neurons are interacting with each other, and they're connecting 100 trillion times. And every single one of you who is alive in this audience today, and not asleep, have 100 trillion cells. You know what that is? That's more stars in the galaxy. So don't tell me it is about capacity here. It is not about capacity. The capacity for all of us to succeed. You are all gifted. You are all gifted. You're all gifted. So we need to teach how the brain works, and we need to help you become more hopeful. And that's the last thing. There was other things I wanted to talk about, but I don't have time. Hopefulness. Now, this is important. How many of you have a relative or a family member or a friend who's challenged by cancer? Show of hands. Oh. Here's a gift. And it's a gift from Jerome Groopman. Groopman. Jerome Groopman. He has this wonderful book that I hope some of you know. It's called The Anatomy of Hope. He has proven with his Harvard Cancer Challenge patients that when the brain is taught to believe and taught to become hopeful, optimistic, you must all die being an optimist. The brain has an ability to help the body fight the cancer. Because when you are taught to be optimistic, your brain emits something called enkephalins and endorphins, which have analgesic qualities that can fight the cancer. So Max, when you're down, and you're doubting yourself, my brother, you said, I remember that, Eric. Eric said, believe and become hopeful, Max. I know I'm with you, Max. You with me, Max? Max is with me. He's been drifting a little here and there. I understand, Max, because there is me. I'm looking at me at your age. When the brain is taught to become hopeful, and we all can be taught to become hopeful, we will survive at larger rates. Here's the problem. Society wants to beat you down. You become first pessimistic, then you become skeptical, then you really dig in, and you begin to doubt yourself. So what I've been trying to do today, and I'm going to welcome questions at the end of this. I've been trying to show you that one, effort, character is more important than achievement, talent. Attitude more than aptitude. I'm talking about the importance of a pedagogy. I'm talking about that it's more a me, a focus on me. I'm talking about the fact that we are more motivated by something that are more powerful than we even have an understanding for. And I want to end, because I love reading the Bible just for the history of it. And I love reading the Talmud, and there was this phrase in the Talmud that really got to me. The Talmud said, it suggests that every blade of grass has its angels that bends over it and whispers. That bends over it and whispers, grow, grow, grow. You all have angels that are whispering over you, expecting great things from you. If you just open your mind to the potential of what can happen. Here's the thing. Everyone says the devil's in the details. Romney says the angels are in the policy. I say God is in the outcome. The outcome that each of you can come to embrace if you believe. Thank you very, very much for your attention. Thank you.
We have a few minutes for questions if people want to ask a question.
Yes.
You mentioned about the education that's one of